Hello, dear listener, and thank you for checking out Something Rotten. We talk about pretty awful games in this show generally, and I put content warnings in the description for most episodes, but I do want to just do one in front of this whole season because, boy, there are some wretched topics that we go into in the show, including but not limited to extended discussions of sexual abuse and suicide. So if either of those things are things that you don't want to consider for any reason, here's just a heads up: it's going to be pretty hard to avoid.
In my restless dreams, I see that tune.
Hello and welcome to the Something Rotten podcast. It's just a classic boys ep. I've got me, Jacob Geller, and my co-host Blake Hester.
Hello.
And that's it for this episode.
Hello.
It's just us talking.
Here's the thing. I mean, really, Jacob, all we ever be doing is just fucking talking. We never shut the fuck up.
It's true.
Hi, Jacob. Can I get something out of the way?
Yes, please do.
I'm sad. This fucking game, dude. Where did you get off, Jacob Geller? Because we were like, hey, we should do a Silent Hill season. And I was like, sounds great. And then, folks at home, to pull back the curtain, Jacob and me are not just business associates, which is good because this would be a terrible business.
We are doing very poorly.
Luckily, we're friends as well. And Jacob, we have talked at least once a week since I met you in 2019, right?
Oh yeah, just talked? Yes.
Which is an insanely long time to just be in constant communication. So I consider you a very dear friend.
Yeah.
And when we decided to do a Silent Hill 2 season, you did not say, Blake, I think this would be bad for your mental health. We shouldn't
Yeah, by
do
the way,
this.
Blake, fuck you. That's why I'm doing
You
this.
let me go down this path. So not only am I blocking you on Blue Sky, I'm blocking you from my life. I am so depressed right now. Great game, though. My God, great game.
It is, I mean, like, we just keep saying the same thing over the season, or at least I do, but, like, I kept waiting for the part where I'd be like, maybe it's not quite the highs that I remember. Nope, never hit it. Just fucking up in the sky for the whole time.
Up in the clouds, me and my spouse. Well,
yeah, maybe not. I mean,
it's a JC
or maybe.
line. Okay, can we do a power ranking real quick? I feel like, okay, we like to say, like, oh, we play so many bad games on Something Rotten. And it's actually not really true. We've played, like, a few bad games, like Manhunt 2. And maybe that's it. But if we were doing top 3 Something Rotten games we've played.
Yes.
Do the power ranking.
I mean, I actually was thinking about this earlier, because I do think this is easily the best.
Okay.
I don't think it's the most, fun. It's not even maybe my favorite, but, like, it is just when I'm like, there is nothing, I love Max Payne 3. In no universe would I say Max Payne 3 is, like, a better game than Silent Hill 2. So Silent Hill 2, number 1. Okay. Honestly, Kane and Lynch 2.
Okay.
Number 2.
Okay.
And then probably Max Payne 3.
Okay.
After that, but I feel like I might be forgetting some. We've done so many just this year. Well, yeah, because it's like I feel bad not having Killer 7 on there. I think I'd put Killer 7 above Max Payne, but below Kane and Lynch.
You want to know my power ranking?
Yeah.
Killer 7. The indisputable GOAT of the game industry. We're all saying it. Silent Hill 2. Kane and Lynch 2.
Hey.
Kane and Lynch 2 is... We'll see where Silent Hill 2 shakes out. Right now, I'm red hot on it, but I just finished it 3 days ago. But
yeah,
Kane and Lynch 2 and Killer 7, both games I only played for this show, are 2 of my top 10 favorite games of all time. So they got to be on that list. Silent Hill 2, feeling like that'll make the list, but I'm just not ready to pull the trigger on that one yet. But Killer 7, I mean, I think about Killer 7 every fucking day of my life. That game is
That's
so
awesome.
good.
It's like I don't think I did not connect with Killer 7 as like spiritually as you did, but like I am so happy that you did, because that is such a cool game to like
It's the best.
be like, this is mine. This is my game.
Yeah, and it didn't make me soul-crushingly depressed when I played it like Silent Hill 2 did, which was a big bonus in my book that I was stoked when I played Killer 7.
Yeah, it's I mean, we've played and you know, to shout them out, Hellblade, I think
Cool
is
game.
a good game.
Cool game.
Darkness 2, you know, we love.
I was just talking to someone about the Darkness 2 the other day, and it made me want to replay
Was it Diego?
No, it was Dan and Bianca. Because Dan had a copy of Darkness 1 at his house, and I was like, how the hell do you not have Darkness 2, brother? And then I got home, and I was like, I think I'm going to install Darkness 2 and replay this. I haven't yet, but I think I'm going to this weekend.
It feels like, not knowing Dan Reichert very well,
Yeah.
seems like the Darkness 2 would be up his alley.
Yeah,
Seems like
I
that'd
agree.
be a shit, right?
I agree. I was thinking, because it must be like $5 at GameStop. I was thinking about picking it up for him and be like, dude, just play this thing on a stream and lose your mind, because it's the coolest game fucking of all time. That's probably my 4th favorite game we've played.
Anyway, we finished Silent Hill 2. If listeners, if you didn't get that, that's the big top line for this episode. We've beat Silent Hill 2. Blake, you sent me your results screen, but I'm just realizing I forgot to look at what ending did you get?
As I have been led to believe, this was an impressive feat without knowing anything about the endings or how to get them. I got in water.
Oh, yeah, that is interesting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you know what? I was gonna say remind me what happens there, but I do think we should work our way through it before talking about them.
You got leave, right?
I got leave, which I knew, like I was trying for that one kind of. But yeah, that is really fascinating. So we finished it. There are multiple different endings. But the beginning of this is this long ass boat ride. That's the first thing that we did after killing Eddie.
Hey, this boat's annoying, dude. Like, I did not realize at first you have to be looking for a tiny light across the lake. And if you don't know that,
you'll just be out there. It
is a nightmare. Especially if you die in the hotel before you find a save point and you have to go all the way back and then do that boat ride a second time. I would hate to do that. Definitely couldn't be me.
You know, this game has, I watched a video once that was like hardest games to platinum, and like Silent Hill 2, the HD collection, has an incredibly difficult platinum just because you have to get like an S rank in the game. And one of the things that you have to do is get through this boat section as fast as it is possible to do so. And it's like, it seems weird because it doesn't seem like there's skill involved, but in the results screen at the end, it actually says like time spent in boat. And if that's like above 2 minutes, you miss out on like S rank for the whole game.
Okay, so thematically, I'm a little curious about this boat, because it feels like it's trying to be very evocative of something like crossing the river Styx or whatever, right? But that feels a little messy to me. Maybe I'm getting in the weeds here. But like the prison section that we talked about so much last time, jumping down those holes, feels more like his entrance into the bowels of hell. That doing this new crossing feels a little strange to me. To be like, now you're really in the muck. It's like, I spent 30 minutes jumping down holes. I didn't love the boat section, is what I'm saying.
I agree. I think if you want to be metaphorical about it, I would say that him getting in that boat and spending such a long time there is essentially him, like, getting ready to unrepress. You know, that, like, when he goes to the hotel, which is the final part of this game, basically, it's like that's when everything comes back up and he realizes the truth. And so I feel like it's kind of him being like, okay, now I am rowing across the water. I'm finally gonna like get there in a way that I haven't been able to before.
It definitely, that boat section takes so long that it feels one of the more anxiety-inducing sections of the game. Not because you think there's a monster across the ocean or across the lake or anything. Just that like you and James know that the answer is on the other side of this lake, and it feels fucking bad knowing that you're going to get an answer. And I have to imagine, even if I didn't know James killed his wife, spoiler listener, we'll get there, that section would still feel bad as you're going across. Like, there's no happiness at the end of this for him.
And partially that's why it's so obtuse. You know, it's so easy to get lost in that, like, hey, it shouldn't be easy to finally confront the truth or whatever. And then again, it's like, the thing is, it's hard to beat jumping down a big hole as just like a metaphor for your character's psyche. And so I don't think it's quite as effective as that, but I do think it's just kind of like, it happens for long enough that it makes you think, like, why am I doing this? Like, why is the game making me do this? Which I like.
What do you know about the lore of Lake Toluca? Because there's an interesting thing about the town's executioners with this lake.
Oh, so I remember, it's like in the historical society, there's just a bunch of shit about, like, there are, like, boats that went down, and, you know, and you made the joke about Minnesota. Every one of those lakes has the same thing. But no, what's the thing about the execution?
Well, now that I'm saying it, I might have the place wrong, but you can find the stone slab early in the game where a lot of it is kind of like covered up, but data miners or whoever has posted the, you know, uncut transcript of what is on that stone slab, and it talks about one of the areas not too far from Toluca Lake being like blood swamp. And it's where the executioners would wash all their, like, bloody tools.
Oh, that's
good. And on the stone slab, it's like, it's no surprise that people say they've seen ghosts in this area.
I love the idea that Silent Hill is, like, what, at most, like, a mid-sized town has, like, multiple executioners. Everyone's like, yeah, this is where they go to wash their tools.
It's what if Australia was a town?
Here's a weird thing that I noticed immediately after the boat, but before I got into the hotel, is so for the leave ending, which is quote unquote the good one, one of the things that you have to do is repeatedly look at the picture of Mary and the letter from Mary in your inventory. This is one of the weird things that the game does, is like it's the same with the knife, actually, that, like, if you look at the picture a lot, you know, you get the good one because it's like, oh, he's thinking of his wife. And if you look at the knife a lot, you get the bad one because it's like, oh, he's thinking of self-destruction. But at this time, I noticed that the letter from Mary was just a blank piece of paper. Like, it was still in my inventory, but when I looked at it, it said the page is blank, and then like a few hours later it just disappeared.
Really?
And I don't know when that happens. Like, I don't know when the segue, but it was very strange because I had been kind of diligently, like, every 20 minutes I would go into my inventory and look at the picture and look at the photo, and then one time it was just like, there's nothing on that letter anymore, which was very weird.
That's so strange. The way this game fucks with your inventory is so fascinating. Like, even the benign ones, like, carry this battery around for 2 hours and not know why.
Yeah.
And then, like, when I finally looked up, because I've been watching a playthrough at the same time, and I was very confused why the guy kept looking at his knife, but I also just started doing it, which I'm sure helped give me my ending. Finding out that's because you're telling the game your James is suicidal. It's like, they were crazy over there. Little geniuses over at Konami. I think that shit's so smart. It is such a meta level of storytelling that I think is, like, actually genius.
And it's the kind of thing where it feels like it is that kind of, like, game design built by restraint, where it's like, actually you can't do infinite things, and so what you're going, like, every piece of it is going to have multiple uses. You know, it's like you can't have a separate, you imagine today it's like, oh, James has like a hub area that he goes back to, and there are different NPCs he can talk to, and if he talks to one enough, then he gets a certain ending. But it's like, no, you just have the inventory. And so what can we do with the inventory that's scary and narratively appropriate? Yeah.
So this fucking hotel.
Yeah. What did you think of it?
I thought it was great. Not my favorite dungeon in the game, which is probably the apartments. Those apartments are just next fucking level.
Yeah.
One thing I really didn't like about it, though, is that the abstract daddy becomes just an enemy.
Yes.
In here. I don't like that. I think that is like, one, they're just annoying to fight. I could never figure out how to get out of their mouths, so whenever they would grab me, I would have to like open up my inventory twice and heal while I was in their mouth.
I realized literally during the final boss battle that like one of the sticks you can wiggle, I think gets you out of a grapple faster. But I didn't know the whole other time.
I could not figure it out. I also feel like it kind of sucks the wind out of how like impactful that boss fight is, to just be like, he's a normal enemy now. Like in a Souls game, it's fine when a boss becomes a normal enemy. It's like, you know what, I get it. It is showing me how strong I have gotten. In Silent Hill 2, you never get stronger. And it's just like, this was such a narratively impactful, heartbreaking moment, and now it's just like an annoyance in a hallway. I really was bummed out by that.
Yeah, I think, to its credit, it is scary. They make a really loud noise, and it's like fuck when they're coming up. And certainly James has his own kind of mental struggles over like figures on beds. But I agree that it's just kind of like it, and it especially sucks to see like two of them, you know, because it's just like, I guess this is just someone that's around. Oh.
And it's not like it ever happens with any of the other bosses, right? Like, you never see flesh lips hanging from the ceiling outside of that boss arena or anything.
Yeah, I think that is a totally fair criticism. Here's something that I laughed at. Laura playing the goddamn piano.
Scaring the shit out of James.
Yeah.
And then she's like, did I scare you? And James, the only time he shows emotion in this game, goes, yeah. It was so funny.
Like, James, you fought like the manifested, monster of someone's sexual assault, but like this, Laura playing the piano is what makes him jump.
This game has only like 2 moments where it attempts humor, and both times are so fucking funny. The early one where Maria pulls 17 different keys out of her clothing to try to unlock the door is very funny. And then Laura pulling a little Bugs Bunny prank on you is also very good. But it leads to the twist of the century.
Okay, which one?
Laura is like, oh, hey, I also got this note from Mary. James reads it. It's a really well-written note from Mary to Laura because they were in the same hospital together. And it was clear, like, since Laura was an orphan, Mary was, kind of wishing she could adopt her, especially if she ever got better from her illness. And then she also writes, hey, Laura, happy 8th birthday. And when James finishes reading the letter, he says, Laura, how old are you? When is your birthday? And she goes, I turned 8 last week, implying that Mary did not die no damn 3 years ago. And in fact, may have only died a week ago.
Yeah, though I guess I'm not quite sure what the implications of that are, because we had a similar thing back in the hospital where Laura says, I was in the hospital with Mary last year.
Yeah.
And James says, you liar, because she died 3 years ago. So either James has said it was 3 years ago and it wasn't, it was a week ago, or Laura and Mary and all of this are just kind of like stuck in time in Silent Hill. Like, I do think that it feels possible that just like time is weird there.
But Laura also says, like, I turned 8 last week. And so I think at the very least the implication there is that like Mary probably died before Laura turned 8, so she probably died within only 2 to 3 weeks before the events of this game. There's also the whole fan theory that Mary is in James' car, which is pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah,
Which Masahiro Ito, I think people put way too much stock into the things he tweets about the game. He is just one person. He did not write the game, but he has also tweeted that Mary is in the backseat. So take that for what you will.
It's like, you missed your chance, man. You didn't. Yeah. If you wanted that to be canon, you should have put it in. Yeah.
But we can get back to the In Water ending later and come back to that.
Okay.
Because there's a very interesting thing James does in that leads credibility to the idea that Mary is in his car.
Mm-hmm. Blake, I need to stop the podcast for a minute to tell you a story about my life.
Is this about the sex toy store near your house?
No, Blake, it's about the sex toy store near my house. Wait, how'd you know this is where I was going?
I'm in your mind, Jacob. We talk to each other too much.
That's true. But, when I was a kid, and still to this very day, I drive past this sex toy store, this weirdly...
Seems like you're doxing yourself, but pop off, King.
That's right. It was this weirdly beautiful store. It had like big fake Roman columns, this whole thing. And as I matured into an age where I knew about these things, I always thought, but there's some interesting stuff in there. But I was too nervous to go in on my own. I still am, to be honest. What if someone sees me, YouTuber Jacob Geller, and judges me on my purchasing habits?
Okay, 2 things on that, Jacob. 1, we're in the era of COVID. Wear a mask, my brother. You're protecting yourself and your identity when you go to buy your sex toys. 2, can I tell you something? My girlfriend and I, our current hobby is going to all the porno and sex toy stores in Manhattan. And let me tell you, some wild things. But better than at least one of those is who sponsored this episode. Do you know who it is?
Wait, who sponsored this episode?
Adam and Eve, the purveyor of adult goods. They want to give Something Rotten listeners, and I assume you, Jacob, 50% off an item and free shipping by using our promo code ROTTEN.
Doesn't the same problem apply, though? I know I can order online, but what if the postage workers see my box and judge me on my order?
Nah. They thought of that too. See, every Adam and Eve order comes in discreet shipping, so you don't need to worry about anyone else knowing about your business, if you catch my drift. Plus, they've got a great return policy, so if you don't like it, no problem.
I can't believe I can finally move past the specter of that store I was always scared of and get stuff 50% off by going to adamandeve.com and using promo code ROTTEN.
By the way, so I told you about my hobby, and you've known me long enough to not be surprised that that's a hobby of mine. I visited you in North Carolina recently, and you mean to tell me that when I visited there a couple months ago, you didn't take me or even tell me about the sex toy store with Roman columns? Did you even want me to enjoy my visit?
Blake, I'm so sorry. I will take you to adamandeve.com, I promise.
Literally all I saw in North Carolina was the Durham Bulls get their ass kicked. Jacob, you know what I love watching on the internet?
Blake, I'm going to politely remind you we are recording right now.
Movies, cinema, all kinds of movies from all over the world. But for reasons not fully worth exploring here, streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and the like have different libraries based on which countries they're being used in.
Is that true?
True as the day is long. That's why I use NordVPN to unlock my computer's location, allowing me to watch Netflix in America, Japan, Albania, the USSR, Constantinople.
Oh, I don't know about the last two, but that's really interesting. They added a time travel feature. So you're saying I could use NordVPN to watch all my favorite anime before they come to America?
Sure can, but that's not all. Believe it or not, bad actors are doing their darndest to steal your information online.
Wait, what?
Yep, and you're helping them by not encrypting your data.
Oh my god. Annie, lock our doors! I'll explain later!
Yeah, don't get caught being a dummy and use NordVPN to protect yourself from malware, trackers, and ads. It'll also notify you if someone leaks your information online, and it helps you avoid those pesky CAPTCHAs and block lists.
Okay, sure, but is Nord tracking or sharing what I'm doing online?
Never. Your traffic is always protected with their robust encryption and their options to make sure your data is never exposed.
Okay, well that sounds great, but how do I sign up?
Well, Nord sponsored this episode, so we have a special link, nordvpn.com/somethingrotten. From there, you can get Nord apps on all your favorite platforms, and one account can be used on up to 6 freaking devices. They also have 24/7 customer support and a 30-day money-back guarantee.
Okay, I'm signing up right now. Let me just type this in, nordvpn.com/somethingrotten.
Probably the best thing you've ever done online, Jacob. Go to nordvpn.com/somethingrotten and sign up for NordVPN to watch all your favorite movies and, importantly, protect yourself on the information superhighway.
What about the information normal highway? Does it have to be super?
I'm looking for it.
Yeah, the hotel is interesting because it is kind of just like the prison is so much and the labyrinth are so playing with the idea of like what a kind of dungeon really even is in this game.
Yeah.
And then the hotel is kind of like, oh, here's another one. You know, it feels similar to the hospital.
And also, like, the prison, and especially the labyrinth, are showing that James's psyche is breaking down, that there is something a little inconsistent when the hotel's architecture makes sense again.
Yeah, though I do I love the Nightmare Hotel. I think is very, very good. And so we'll talk about that. But yeah, so there's just kind of one major puzzle here, which is just like finding 3 music boxes.
No, hold on.
Yeah.
There's another puzzle, and it's the only puzzle I had to look up for this entire game.
Oh, is it the elevator?
The fucking elevator puzzle stumped me, dude. The music boxes or whatever, you just go find 3 music boxes, place them, and then you get a new key. Mm-hmm. But at some point, the only way to progress, you're like, well, there's an elevator, but every time you get on it, it's like weight limit, 1 person, and then maybe this is the 3rd joke in the game, but you have so much shit in your inventory that it's like, yeah, it weighs as much as another person,
It's like, James has like a rifle and a shotgun and a pistol and like 700 rounds of ammunition, and it's like, you can't ride this.
It's so funny. And I did not understand that I needed to get rid of everything in my inventory because there's like a what do you call that?
Like a storage locker?
Yeah, there's a storage locker in there, and I did not put 2 and 2 together. Like, take everything, literally everything out of your inventory, including your radio and your light. I kept thinking, oh, there must be something on top of the elevator. So I was going up to the next floor and trying to find a way to like get out there and look.
Oh, that's clever.
I'm too smart for the game, or the game is too smart for me because I looked it up and they're like, hey, no, go into the bowels of this hotel with nothing. And I was like, what if I watched the rest of the game on YouTube? But I didn't. I got through it, but it was very scary.
Yeah, because to its credit, very, very scary to put all of your healing items, all of your guns, your flashlight, all of it just on this shelf. And it, like, you know, I've been replaying BioShock, and there's a part where you have to like put all your BioShock shit in like a garbage can, and it's like, no doubt in my mind the game is gonna give me all that back, but this game is so fucking mean that you just think maybe I won't ever get it back. Like, maybe this is just it.
But down in that basement, I don't think anything too narratively interesting happens. But it does have one of the dumber puzzles where there's a sealed can that you finally get a can opener for, and it's full of light bulbs. And I was like, that's stupid. That's Resident Evil shit right here. Like, even when the puzzles are, like, confusing, it's like, I guess it makes sense. And this is one, like, come on now.
Yeah, and,
like,
and the reason that you need a light bulb is, like, James can't see the door to put a key. It suddenly goes very just, like, point-and-click adventure. It feels like Grim Fandango. Or some shit.
That basement, though, very scary. I was not a fan.
It's scary. I don't like being down there. Here's something that I thought was really cool, because it happened so quickly and I like cut it off that I was like doubting myself, is if you go to the 3rd floor before the gates open, it's like, so the 3rd floor of the hotel is locked originally and you have to find a key. As you're walking away from the locked door, you hear Mary or Maria, but it sounded specifically like Maria to me, yelling James, and like I literally, because the game like loads between scenes, I just heard like Jay, and then I like walked out, and I was like, what? And if you go up there again, it doesn't happen again. Like, it only does it once, which is very creepy.
This reminds me about a follow-up I need to do. About last episode, we talked with Super Eye Patch Wolf about when I was playing this game a week or so ago, and I heard a scream, and I wasn't convinced whether or not it was in the game or in my apartment building. Well, 2 nights ago, Jacob, I was laying in bed, decidedly not playing Silent Hill, because it was like 1:30 in the morning, pitch black, and I was just trying desperately to get to sleep. And you know what I heard in my apartment? A fucking scream.
That's so fucked up.
And I like shot out of bed because I was like, what is happening? And I like sat there and I really had to think, like, what do I do in this moment? And I was like, okay, if I hear a second scream, I will call the cops or get up or do whatever I need to do. And I never heard anything else. So I just laid back in bed and was like,
don't worry, she was already dead. So there was no second scream.
I just laid back in bed and was like, please let this be the right decision. Do you ever have a moment like that where something happens and you're like, do I have to take action right now? But you don't know.
It's very rarely with like a human that I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, mostly because I don't live in an apartment building, so you just don't run into those. But I do run into that kind of all the time where it's like, I don't know, you turn on a light and it makes like a weird buzzing and you're like, maybe I can just ignore that and it'll go away.
So, like, I've in my old apartment, I had at least one situation where something happened and I had to call 911. And this time, when the scream happened, I heard no sounds of violence or struggle and no repeated screams. So I was like, I don't want to go down there at like 1:30 in the morning and her be like, oh yeah, I just stubbed my toe. Can you leave me alone? You know, like, it could have been just
I mean, or maybe like Eye Patch Wolf's friend's brother, just night terrors.
Yeah, like, I just sat there. I was like, okay, am I gonna hear anything else? And when I didn't, I just went back to bed. But I don't know what's going on in my apartment right now.
Your apartment is in Silent Hill.
Well, I'm out of here in like 2 weeks, so whatever.
That's why you're about to get the leave ending on your apartment.
Yeah, me and Laura, we're out of here.
Yeah, so you put everything on a shelf, you solve some silly puzzles. I love any time there's like a music box in a game. I just think it's so fun for the composer to be like, and now I'm gonna make a creepy little music box song. And like, obviously, Akira Yamaoka, very good at doing shit like creepy little music box songs.
I actually thought it was creepier when you solved the puzzle and the music box does not stop.
Oh yeah, it keeps going and you can like leave the room and you keep hearing it.
Yeah, not a fan of that. It creeped me out.
But I mean, so the major thing that happens in this hotel is you walk in, there's a note that's like, cassette tape or VHS tape left in this room has been like, is being held on to for guest. And so eventually you get into the employee quarters, you find that tape. It is, of course, the tape that Mary was like, you forgot when we were there. We left that tape there. And then you eventually get up to the room that you and Mary hung out in, and you watch the tape. Is this another is this another game featuring a snuff film?
Well, no, because as we talked about, the definition of a snuff film is a death recorded for commercial profit.
True. Okay, you're right.
So, no, this is death footage, though, of dubious origin. Why is this filmed? Look, Jacob, this disturbed me on like a level I was not ready for, because I assumed you saw the murder, but like, I was like, whatever, it's a 20-year-old game, it's not gonna look that bad. It looks horrible. And then later that night, I was watching like an analysis video, and I guess data miners have got the uncut audio before they like censored what Mary sounded like. Have you heard that?
I don't think so.
The voice actress, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, they make her do like muffled screams.
Oh my god.
And in the game, it's not there. They have like covered it with like static and everything. It's horrible. Like, the sights are terrible, and then if you actually hear the audio they recorded for this, it is like a genuinely traumatizing scene in a video game. Like, it made me feel fucking bad.
Something that I thought was really kind of surprising about it, just based on my memory, is like, they do show so little. Because it's so staticky, and it's like, if you don't know what you're looking for, especially because they don't have the audio in it, I think it would be possible to like not fully get what happened here, because like,
it must be why James explicitly says it immediately afterwards,
which is kind of a bummer. I wish I kind of wish he didn't, but yeah, because the tape is not entirely him killing her. It's like the meme of like footage of a wife who's about to die, where she's like, ha ha ha, why are you filming me, silly, we're on vacation. Then it has her being like, I love it here, and then her just in the hospital bed, and then there's like, I mean, less than a second of James going like and like putting the pillow on top of her.
But it was that fucking motion that disturbed me so badly. Like, I was genuinely disturbed by this cutscene.
It is the FMVs and the motion capture of this game are so good and so weird that they can just kind of like, they really catch you off guard because you don't expect them to move the way they do.
So I want to ask you something about this because I've been deep down the rabbit holes. I read Mike Drucker's book over the past 2 days, sped through the whole thing. Really good book. I had never read a boss fight book before, so it's my first one. Good stuff.
Good book.
There seems to be 2 trains of thoughts about James.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious your headcanon, because I actually think it makes, like, the character of James very interesting. Do you think he has fully repressed this memory over however much time has passed, and so that he is actually learning he killed his wife? Or do you think he's just in, like, severe denial until this moment where he can no longer lie to himself about what happened? Because for me, I don't like the idea that he is actually learning he killed her, because I think there's too many, like, moments where he is clearly fighting himself from saying that he did it. But I really, really like the idea that he is in intense denial until Silent Hill forces him to own up to it.
I agree. I think,
yeah.
I mean, and honestly, it's the problem that I have with the ending I got is, like, I think James is a bad guy, and I don't think this game works if he is, like, a good person who repressed the thing he did that in the Leave ending turns out to actually be fine. You know, it's like it basically absolves him of it. I think that, like, all of the shit going on in the town only makes sense if he is rotten as a man. And so him lying to himself is, I think, just much more compelling than him, like, having no memory of this and then being like, oh my gosh.
I agree. But I also want to say, I think the writing of this game is so good that it might be the first game I've ever given a shit about, like, headcanon for, where I'm, like, trying to figure out. In any other game, I'd be like, I don't fucking care. He was in denial or he had repressed it. I don't give a shit. Can you show me the credits so I can record this podcast? And this one, I've, like, spent serious time, like, really thinking about, like, what do I think about this character? Which I think is a testament to, like, how fucking well written they did this 20 goddamn years ago.
Yeah. So you watch this tape. This is a thing that's kind of been ruined by a meme for me because I didn't remember that it was this scene. Have you seen, like, the thing of him dancing to this music?
I've seen, like, GIFs of him dancing.
Where it's like, because the soundtrack, like, kind of goes hard, you know, there's like a drum beat and, like, a bass line that comes in when it does this very slow pan around him. There is some video of him just, like, breaking it down and throwing it back and doing all that. But it is, you know, I don't love that he says, I killed my wife, because, you know, we get it. But I do love how long they spend here. And something that I specifically noted is, like, Laura shows up there or whatever, and James says, I killed her. And there is, like, a 20-second pause before Laura starts yelling at him. And it's so weird because it's like, I don't know if, like, Laura is taking in the information, or the question is, like, what even is, like, is Laura, like, actually there? Is Laura just kind of like I mean, I guess she is, because James wasn't really familiar with her, but, like, understanding how she would react to things is another thing that you can just think about for a really long time.
I also, like, I don't remember if I know we talked a little bit about Eddie's vision of Silent Hill, and we're definitely going to talk about Angela's vision. I don't remember if we talked about Laura's, but, like, by this point, you understand, to Laura, Silent Hill is just, like, a normal-ass town.
Yeah. She's like, why is everyone so weird here?
Well, that's what makes this point interesting, because it's like, this is the first time something, like, actually bad has happened to Laura in Silent Hill.
That's true.
It makes me really dislike the Leave ending, because there's a reading of that James adopts Laura.
Yeah.
Which I really hate, because, like, Laura, in this moment, Laura's reaction is very well done, where she is like, fuck you, I hate you. Like, you killed my surrogate mother. But it is the first time something bad happens to her in Silent Hill.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because it is like, James is not from Silent Hill, quote unquote. And so, like, he can scar her in a way that the monsters can't, because she doesn't see them.
Yeah.
Well, so after that, the hospital gets fucked.
The hotel, but yes.
Oh, the hotel. Yeah. You leave, and it is, I think something really cool that maybe hasn't even been touched on that much up until this point, but the idea that essentially James's Silent Hill is like wet is part of it, or at least this. And the hospital or the hotel is really interesting because it is both completely waterlogged and looks like it has been burned, you know. And so it's this kind of like confluence of things, but it really feels like you just go out and it's just like disgusting, and it looks like a shipwreck that's been at the bottom of a lake that they then like pulled up.
It's also getting progressively worse based on the doors you go through, which is really cool because like when the hospital shifts into the hell world, it's just like it's one or the other, it's binary. And with this, it's like every step closer you get to the ending of the game, the hotel is like degrading around you.
I think it's so, and you know, just like very impressive graphics for 2001, just having these multiple stages of like decomposition of the wood and whatever is really cool. I'll tell you the part just like kind of environmentally that made me just shudder is there is a thing where you get in an elevator and you go to the basement and the doors open and you are just in like waist high water. And it's just like, you know, just that kind of like picturing yourself there being like, this looks like it sucks so much, and the water is like black and really thick looking,
and there are enemies crawling in it, which is terrible because you cannot see them at all. Like it's so fucking scary.
No, it was like a panic moment of me because I thought briefly that the water was like rising, which it's not, but it does feel like just like, am I just going to drown here is what it feels like.
But shortly thereafter, Jacob, I mean, I think you said it to me in DMs, the scene of Silent Hill 2.
Well, you were like, we'll talk about my favorite scene. You can probably guess what it is. And I was like, there's only one option.
Set it up for us. This could be the episode right here.
And one of the amazing things about it is how quickly it happens. But it's like you're in this waist-high water. You're in the basement of the hotel. You open a door, and suddenly you are in a flaming stairwell. You're at the bottom, and you're looking upstairs. And you see Angela there, who you haven't seen since the Abstract Daddy boss fight. And she is looking at a picture on a wall, maybe, that is essentially a canvas made of stretched flesh. It kind of looks like if you mounted the Abstract Daddy enemy like on a canvas, but it's just in the same way that her boss fight arena is made of stretched flesh. She's looking at a picture that's just flesh. And
it appears that the genitals have been mutilated on this thing. And I'll say that to me,
really?
Yeah, to me, the skin looks decidedly male.
I agree that it definitely looks male, and you can see, I mean, it's really, again, it's very well done, and playing the enhanced edition, they went to town on this texture. And so you have a conversation with her, which is very weird in many ways. She mistakes you for her mama, and not a little bit. Not like she sees you out of the corner of her eye and is like, Mom, oh no. It's like she looks at James, she has her hands around his head and is like, Mama, you're here, and then realizes that it's not, and it's James, and she's kind of disgusted by him.
She says something, and I had said to you when we were talking before recording, I don't buy that this is her saying she wants to kill her mom, which I've completely turned around on thinking about it more. But she looks at James, and as she's confusing him for her mom, she goes, now I can finally rest. And the idea that being...
Or it says, you're the last one.
Yeah, now I can finally rest. And the idea being there is like she's in Silent Hill to try and find her mother to kill her, like her father and brother, to get rid of all of her abusers. Which, as I've thought more about, I think I buy.
Yeah, it's weird to think about her wanting to kill. Well, I guess she killed her dad figure with the TV. I kind of read it, if we're to take that reading, which I do think is probably the most obviously what she means by you're the last one, because Silent Hill is hell, essentially. Like, it does feel like her seeing her mom there could almost be like, oh, you're in hell too. Like maybe she just like,
yeah.
you know, she just died. And she's like, because I do know, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
it is a weird thing for the victims of abuse to have their abuser die and essentially like have to deal with the feelings of like, ultimately I am glad they're dead. And you're not supposed to, just societally, you're not really supposed to be like, thank God they died, but like it is easier for them to be alive with that person being dead. And it feels like maybe that's what Angela's getting at, but that's reading into it a lot. And I also think it's possible that, yeah, she killed her dad and now she wants to kill her mom because she blames them both for her abuse.
Yeah, I mean, we also learn in this cutscene that Angela's mom victim blamed her. Like Angela says.
This is I mean, I don't know if it's a twist, but it is one of the heart-wrenching things in this is that James says very little in this scene. She's really just going back and forth with herself. And so she's like, maybe I can rest. And then she kind of changes her mind and she's like, no, my mom was right. I deserved it.
Yeah. A few interesting things happen here. One is the cutscene goes into a first-person perspective of James.
Sure fucking does.
Laura looks directly
Angela.
at you, Angela looks directly at you, the player, and asks, you know, sarcastically, oh, are you going to love me? Are you going to save me? Heal all my pain? And there is definitely a video game commentary, I think, going on there that I have yet to figure out.
I think it's, I mean, when this happened, I like all the hair on my arms stood up. And I made Annie, my partner, watch just the scene. I was like, this scene is super fucked up, but also like you just have to watch it because it is so like, it is just so impactful. And even she, who had not been watching the game, was like, is it in first person right now? Like, it's such a jarring jump. And I think it is, I think it's doing both a metatextual, you the player feel like you're supposed to save people, you know, like how do I get the happy ending for Angela is what we're thinking. But also this is why James getting a good ending doesn't work for me again, is because like it is puncturing this vision that James has of himself as like a good man, where he's like, you know, you can picture him lying to himself being like, well, I was the perfect husband to marry and like I did everything I could for her, and then sadly, tragically, I had to kill her because that's what she wanted, you know, like this is the lie he's telling himself. And so for Angela to say that to him just so like bitterly, to be like, oh yeah. You gonna do this again, you gonna fucking think you can fix a woman and then end up like hurting her more. So then it cuts out of first person to this profile view, and James is just, I mean, he looks like someone has punched him in the gut. Like he is just standing there. He can't even look at her. He's just like looking at the ground.
Motherfucker been put in its place.
Truly. And then Angela says I mean, it's like, it is hard to pick what is like the most heartbreaking part of this scene.
No, it's easy. I can tell you.
Okay. Is it when she just says, "Give me the knife"?
No.
Okay.
Not for me. But let's talk about that because games have handled suicide before. Few games have a character that say, "I'm going to kill myself." Now, it is something. Usually see the after effects of it, not the desire for the action, which, you know, I think it's okay to show the desire for the action because I see suicide as like losing a battle with a disease more than a failure of the person, that I think a lot of people see it as like cowardice. But I was also taken aback by seeing that presented in a video game for a character to explicitly say like, I am ready to end my own suffering.
Yeah. And also I think that, a way it is much easier to talk about suicide, and especially to depict it as like, I don't know, something that it's just, it happens almost in like a panic or whatever. Like it's very quick. And for Angela to just be like so unemotionally, just like, give me the knife, you know, like I'm just, you know, this is what it's going to be. I'm not saying this because I'm like beside myself and can't control my emotions. It's just like, this is the future I see for myself.
Yeah.
Is really fucking hard. And then James says, no. And she says, again, it's like one of the best parts about the scenes is like how mean she is to him. Because she's like, oh, saving it for yourself. And James, kind of taken aback, is like, no, I would never kill myself, in this very Jamesy line delivery.
Let's circle back to that when we talk about my ending.
Yeah.
No, the hardest part of this for me was Angela turns around and ascends up the stairs, and James, like the dumbass he is, just goes, "It's hot as hell in here." It's like, all right, thanks, James. Very, very helpful thing to say. But Angela says, "Oh, you can see it too. It's always like this for me." And there was something about, because it's not like James's vision of Silent Hill is fucking a walk in the park. It sucks. But there's something so, like, I see Angela's vision as several orders of magnitude worse than James.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there is something about the idea of being engulfed in flames constantly that is like, it's intangible for me. I don't know how to explain it. It was so heartbreaking for me to realize, like, that is this character's sole existence. I think there's just, like, a nostalgic layer of, like, I liked the Silent Hill movie as a kid. And so when I see most of Silent Hill 2, I'm like, oh, it's kind of like that. That's fun. But seeing a vision for it that is not meant for James, that is, like, this one glimpse of what Silent Hill looks like for a different character, and it being truly horrific was, like, just so heartbreaking for me.
It is the line of the game. You know, like, true. If you had to pick just like one thing to be like, what is Silent Hill 2 about? It is Angela saying, for me, it's always like this. Because it is both, you know, kind of a confirmation that yes, everyone is in their own personal, like, constructed hells. You know, they're not all the same. They're not all experiencing the same thing. But yeah, just the fact that you know, Angela's in that line paints kind of a picture of her life that is just like, yep, I can't get out of this. And for me, this other thing that it's like, it's so small, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, is that that's where the cutscene ends, and then control is returned to you, and you're just standing at the bottom of the stairs, and you can't walk up the stairs after her because there's flames, but you can see, like, in gameplay, Angela's character model just continues to walk up the stairs, and there is something about it not being in a cutscene that is so kind of scary and impactful, of just like, you can't pretend this is just like, okay, we saw the story part of the game and now you're doing the part where you run around. You know, like that line is erased and you just see Angela, while you're able to control James, just walking up the stairs, and you can't stop her, and eventually she's kind of engulfed by flames and disappears.
Unbelievable scene. Top video game scene of all time. Like, this shit is unbelievable.
It is so awful. It is so, you know, it's like, it feels fucked up to be like, yeah, you know, the best video game scene I've ever watched is about, like, a woman dealing with the trauma that she received by being sexually abused. But, like, it's just, you know, I don't know. It's such an obvious metaphor, but, like, the way that they do it is just so fucking visceral that it's just like, you're there, you know, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the last time we see Angela in the game. And then the next thing that happens is James sees Maria die again. I'm
gonna out myself as a little dummy here. It wasn't until this moment that I realized what Maria dying was thematically in this game. It's like, oh yeah, she's James's ideal Mary, and he has to watch her die over and over. It took me until this moment to put those pieces together.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily dumb. And so do you think that's his torture, is having to watch her die over and over?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of them. There's no shortage of tortures for this dirty, dirty man.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, even so, there are ways you can play this game where you are telling the game you're either more or less infatuated with Maria, but I think there is the baseline, like, sexual attraction of James to Maria, no matter how you play it. And so the idea of this dude having a weird boner for this ghost lady the whole time, but also watching her die pretty viciously twice and then off screen a third time is like, that's a way to put this dude through hell. And this last time is like so much worse because it's like, I mean, there's a lot of BDSM coding to this. Masahiro Ito was very openly inspired by BDSM while working on this game. But Maria is kind of tied up upside down. Like
in a way that eventually the final boss is also.
It's very sexual, but then like it's the same way she's killed in the elevator. It's just a little more graphic. There are 2 pyramid heads this time, believe it or not.
And they don't have their big knives. They've got spears. They got skewers.
An enemy so nice they did him twice. He just impales this poor woman. And James, I think, has a good reaction. He falls just exasperated.
Oh, well, I wrote, he loses his shit. You know, when she dies, before the line that I think you're going to talk about, when she is tied up and about to die, he does kind of emote in a way that he does not in the rest of the game, where he's like, ah! He really kind of is appropriately terrified, and Maria really screams here in a way that is also very unpleasant and feels real. But then, I wrote this down too.
He goes a little too hero mode for me. Like, fuck you, James. You're not cool. I have played this game for 8 hours, and I fucking hate you. I love this game, but I fucking hate you, James. Do not be like, I know what you are. I know why I'm here. And now it's time to destroy you. It's like, shut the fuck up.
It is a Kratos line that they gave him. Like, he's like gathering his strength, and he's like, time to end this. And you don't get to say that.
Yeah, I also don't like that this is a boss fight. Because if you're going to do that line, it is James accepting, like, what Pyramid Head is to his psyche, which is punishment. Like, he says that explicitly. And the end of this fight, you run around and just shoot Pyramid Head while you wait for a timer to run out. And then the 2 Pyramid Heads, kill themselves. They impale themselves.
Yeah.
And that is the idea that, like, James has accepted his guilt, and now he no longer needs Pyramid Head to punish him. I think there shouldn't have been a boss fight there, because there's no reason for James to actually fight these things. They have served their purpose. I think when that happens, they should have just killed themselves.
Yeah, because it's not... at least if you get the quote-unquote heroic ending that I got, it implies that he has then overcome his guilt.
Yeah.
Which is, like, when paired with the badass line, he's like, I'm healed. I killed Pyramid Head. And, like, maybe that is appropriate for the ending I eventually got, but it doesn't feel... It does not feel of a piece with the rest of the game. Yeah. I do really like the imagery of Pyramid Head killing themselves, because they both they like put the spear up to their chin and kind of lean on it, and it's like really graphic and weird looking.
No, I really, really like the Pyramid Head suicide. I think that's like very narratively smart. I just don't think it makes sense that we would fight Pyramid Head at all here. But we do, and you know what? This is the game we got to live with. They're making a remake. Maybe they'll take my ideas. Take that boss fight out. Okay, so we leave. One quick thing to note. Did you notice there's an observation room in this hotel that you can't enter?
No.
You know what that is?
Oh, like on the map?
Mm-hmm. You know what that is?
What?
That's where the dog is. It's the observation room that he's watching the town from. It's right outside this doorway. I believe, I don't know for sure, but I believe after you enter this fight, or exit this fight, that's when you enter that doorway to get the dog ending, where the dog is controlling Silent Hill. Have you seen the credits when you do the dog ending?
Yes, I have, but I can't remember. Tell me what they are.
There's a very funny gag. In the normal credits, there's like a profile shot of James. This kind of gameplay plays in the background. And then like a bitchin' ass guitar riff plays, and my ending. That's pretty sick. The dog ending, that profile is of the Shiba Inu dog. And then gameplay plays in the background. There's a lot of funny shit. Like, there's like James dancing, or like sexy pictures of James as a hunk, or Maria in like a bikini. But one of the ones that is so funny, there's this song playing, and the song is just like the dog barking. It's like ruff, 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 ruff. Arr. But when they flash pictures of Eddie, who killed a dog, the song will like stop, and the dog will just start growling. It's so fucking funny.
That is really
good stuff. I also like in the dog ending that they did not even localize it. It's using Japanese VO out of nowhere. It's just like...
For listeners who are not familiar with this, if you do like a very specific sequence of events through the game that you would like never do naturally, you can open this door. There's a Shiba Inu just pushing a bunch of like buttons and levers, and James yells, "It was you the whole time!"
Yeah. And then have you seen the UFO ending?
Yeah.
Where it plays out like a fucking silent film and Harry Mason is there?
Yeah.
It kicks ass, dude. My ending was not nearly as funny as any of these. Did you fight Mary or Maria?
Well, that's a weird question, right?
So depending on the answer you get, you either fight Mary or Maria.
I mean,
like
she was dressed as Mary,
right?
But then she said, "I'm Maria."
So I believe if you get the Maria ending, which we can talk about, which neither of us got, you fight Mary. Like, it is explicitly Mary up there. But for my ending, it was Maria for sure.
Huh. Yeah, that is interesting, because there's some more good damning of what James wants here, where you leave basically the basement of the hotel where this boss fight was. You run up these steps, and you're just like in I think it's the church basically from the beginning. You're in some building, and Mary is there, or someone dressed as Mary is there looking out the window, this very well-composed shot. And you go up to her. In my game, it was Maria. She turned around, and basically what she said, she was like, no, let me stay with you. I'll never yell at you or make you feel bad. Which was, again, this kind of like, James doesn't want a person. He just wants like a woman who will be nice to him. And then she transforms into an evil nun hung upside down.
I think mine was similar-ish. Honestly, this part, including the boss fight, did not do much for me. I think everything that followed afterwards was amazing, but like this whole section, I think James was still just kind of in hero mode, and it just like, it didn't hit for me. Maria was like, "Oh, you killed Mary again," and I was like, that's kind of a good line. But
I'm looking at the script, by the way, for the different endings, and you are correct in that you explicitly fight Mary. And Mary says, "Don't make excuses, James. I knew I was a burden. You must have hated me. That's why you got rid of me." And James said, "It's true. I had some of these feelings. It was a long 3 years. I was tired." Mary says, "That's why you needed this Maria person." And then says, "James, do you really think I could ever forgive you for what you did?" And then transforms.
So that's the Maria ending, which neither of us got. But we should talk about, because it's wild. Jacob, you know what I love watching on the internet?
Blake, I'm going to politely remind you we are recording right now.
Movies, cinema, all kinds of movies from all over the world. But for reasons not fully worth exploring here, streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and the like have different libraries based on which countries they're being used in.
Is that true?
True as the day is long. That's why I use NordVPN to unlock my computer's location, allowing me to watch Netflix in America, Japan, Albania, the USSR, Constantinople.
Oh, I don't know about the last two, but that's really interesting. They added a time travel feature. So you're saying I could use NordVPN to watch all my favorite anime before they come to America?
Sure can, but that's not all. Believe it or not, bad actors are doing their darndest to steal your information online.
Wait, what?
Yep, and you're helping them by not encrypting your data.
Oh my god. Annie, lock our doors! I'll explain later!
Yeah, don't get caught being a dummy and use NordVPN to protect yourself from malware, trackers, and ads. It'll also notify you if someone leaks your information online, and it helps you avoid those pesky CAPTCHAs and block lists.
Okay, sure, but is Nord tracking or sharing what I'm doing online?
Never. Your traffic is always protected with their robust encryption, and there are options to make sure your data is never exposed.
Okay, well, that sounds great, but how do I sign up?
Well, Nord sponsored this episode, so we have a special link. Go to nordvpn.com/rotten, and from there you can get Nord apps on all your favorite platforms, and one account can be used on up to 6 freaking devices. They also have 24/7 customer support and a 30-day money-back guarantee if, for any reason, you don't like it.
Okay, I'm signing up right now. Let me just type this in. nordvpn.com/rotten.
Probably the best thing you've ever done online, Jacob. Go to nordvpn.com/rotten and sign up for NordVPN to watch all your favorite movies and, importantly, protect yourself on the information super highway.
What about the information normal highway? Does it have to be super?
I'm looking for it. Please tell me about your ending and everything that was going through your head. What was the ending you got the original time?
I think I may have got leave both times.
Okay.
Which the requirements of it are you look at your pictures, but then there's other weird stuff, like one, you don't look after Maria too much. You don't like check in on her in the scenes that you can. And also you have to keep your health very high. Is like a weird thing, is that like if you spend time damaged, you don't get this ending. It's just one of those other kind of interesting mechanical things. So well, actually, before that, one thing that I think happens with all the boss fights is that like you kind of Mary or Maria is like floating around and you just shoot them a bunch, but then they like fall on the ground and just lay there and say James. Which is very weird, and then you have to shoot them again to end the boss battle. So my ending is essentially.
I'm sorry, to interrupt you, we forgot a really big plot point.
Yeah.
Shortly before this, we walk down a long hallway, and it is revealed that in her sickness, as her body was kind of degrading, Mary was very verbally abusive to James.
Well, I know that is a reading of it.
I mean, look, I'm not trying to cast Mary as a villain, but like they play audio of it and it's pretty vicious. It is something that if I were to draw a real world analogy or a comparison to my own life, when I was a little kid, my granny had Alzheimer's, and before she went to the nursing home, Alzheimer's can cause people to be like very aggressive and angry. And I have a very specific memory of her like blowing up on my grandfather. And obviously I don't think myself or my grandfather was like, fuck this bitch. But like it was very hard for me as a child. And I remember for him, it must have been awful because there's no fixing it. There's no talking to her about it. And obviously Mary's unspecified disease is not the same as like as Alzheimer's. But I can see the idea here being that this would have a profound negative impact on James, because like we do hear the audio and it is like pretty vicious, and then it's followed by this heartbreaking, like, because Mary's like, get the fuck out of here, I don't want your flowers, I'm hideous right now, don't be near me, like she's screaming at him. But then it's followed by, I guess, as James is like, all right, I'll just fucking leave, Mary like breaking down, being like, I don't want to die, tell me I won't die, and all this. Like it's very hard.
I think I actually didn't hear the second part because in the script it says like Mary pauses for a moment, and I might have been like, it's done. I think because I heard it and I was kind of like, it fucking sucks to be dying. You know, like I was kind of willing to give her the, like, I don't know, you get to yell at people if you're dying.
I agree.
But after she pauses, the kind of like, hey, come back, I didn't mean what I said, come back, you know, it is more kind of like, you know, that is more textbook, like, here's abuse, you're yelling at someone, and then, like, you know, immediately being like, I didn't mean it, I need you.
I don't even think I'm reading it like that. Like, I think, like, and I don't think the game is trying to paint Mary as a villain, unless you play this game horribly wrong and you get the Maria ending, which that's on you. But I also think, like, for Mary to act this way towards James, like, these are going, and he's already handling the situation very poorly by not even showing up half the time to see her in the hospital, but these are creating his final memories of her, which you would imagine would have, like, be traumatizing to be like, some of my final memories of my wife before she passes, or before me, the worst man on earth, James Sunderland, murders her, is her, like, taking out the anger of her situation on me. So, like, I don't think it's casting her as a villain, but I think it is showing how awful this time was for everyone and how some of his final memories are being, like, verbally berated by his spouse.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't want to diminish how she was treating him here.
Yeah.
I do just, like, I have heard people read this as, like, Mary was verbally abusive to James as like a statement about their relationship, which I just think is like, I don't think you can really make that call from
100%.
this. And then that line of thinking seems to kind of lead to like, so James was kind of okay. And I don't think that works. Speaking of,
I fully agree with you there.
Speaking of James was kind of okay. So the ending that I got is essentially what happens is that it fades to James sitting next to Mary in a bed. Mary looks fucked. Like she looks like she has like 3rd-degree burns all over her body, or like that disease in Game of Thrones where people like turn into stone. Like that's what it looks like she has.
She looks like she's got leprosy.
I guess that also.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
But anyway, so like, she says, I told you I wanted to die. I wanted the pain to end. And James says, that's why I did it. I just couldn't watch you suffer. And then he kind of goes back and he's like, no, that's not true. You also said you didn't want to die. The truth is I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back, which I think is probably the most accurate reading of James.
Yes.
She then says, James, if...
Even in that moment, he tries to lie.
Yes.
Which I thought was, like, so profoundly fucked up. Like, James, she's not even real at this point, and you can't tell the truth on first blush.
But then she says, which I just hate as a line, she says, James, if that were true, then why do you look so sad?
Yeah.
Which is just like, if you killed me because you wanted your life back, wouldn't you be happy about it? And she says, go on with your life. And then she reads a letter.
So a lot of the first half of what you said plays out the same for me. James tries to lie to the ghost of his wife before being like, actually, I'm just a piece of shit. And then what Mary says in the In Water ending is, you've suffered for what you've done. It's enough, which is not an absolution in my mind, but it is her saying, you got what you deserved. And now it is time for you to move on. It's time for you to do whatever the next step is. And what the next step is, and this circles back to whether or not Mary, because I think this is coded a little 2 different ways. It is one kind of a final conversation with the memory of Mary, but I also think it is the memory of one of his final moments with Mary, is like in the real world. When Mary dies in my ending, she kind of reaches out for James and then dies right there after being like, don't necessarily absolve you of what you did, but you've gone through enough to like to justify what you did to me. He picks her up and carries her out of the room.
Right, and this is the scene that's in the intro cutscene, right? Or like the start select screen where they play Theme of Laura. Yeah.
Kind of. And so that is what I think leads a lot of people to believe Mary is in his car. Because I think like this is kind of mirroring a real world event for James, and also like kind of this figment of his imagination final. Does that make sense? I know it's getting kind of like weird.
Yeah, but and the fact that it's picturing the last moments of her life, and then he got up and took the body.
Yeah. So whether or not, I don't know. I kind of like the idea that Mary is in his car. I think that's a fun idea. But this letter fucking tore me a new one.
Well,
dude.
Okay, but then what happens in your ending?
You get a voiceover where James effectively says, obviously paraphrasing, you know, I know I'm here. I can never be without my wife, and now I'm going to be with you forever. And then you get the sounds of a car driving very erratically, very fast, and then it cuts to a still frame image below water that you can probably guess is Toluca Lake. The idea being that with Mary in tow in the back of his car, James committed suicide. Which, I'll say, I'm so thankful I got this ending. I have no clue how I lucked my way into this on my first playthrough. And when I watched the other endings that are not the joke endings, I thought they fucking sucked. And I was so glad I got this ending because it felt so narratively appropriate for who I thought James was and what I think he needed to do by the end of this game. I know that sounds fucked up to be like, he should kill himself, but also he should kill himself. And he did. And I loved my ending. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it feels... I don't know if this game has to end with James killing himself, but the other two endings do just feel completely inappropriate.
Yeah, so your ending is he leaves with Laura. There's an implication that he is fulfilling Mary's dying wish of adopting her. It's not explicitly said, but I think you can see it that way. The other ending, if you kill Mary as the final boss, is he re-meets with Maria on the water. She's like, damn, you killed her wife again, that's crazy. And he's like, yeah, I'm trying to fuck. This is basically what is being said here. And then the letter plays out, which we'll talk about, but it goes back to the first shot of the game, or of the second shot of the game, of the car outside the town. And then James and Maria walk up. There's this hilarious
funny
moment where Maria starts coughing, and if you've been kind of following the game up to this point, it's clear that Maria has the same sickness as Mary, especially in the hospital. We find her medicine that's the same as Mary's, but she coughs, and James turns to her with this gruffness he does not have in the rest of the game, and he goes, you better get that damn cough figured out. And I was like, are you fucking shitting me? It's one of the worst written lines I've ever heard in a video game, and one of the best written video games I've ever played.
Well, I think it's kind of... I do think it's funny just because I think it's, you know, the idea just being like, it's not like things are gonna work out. You know, like, I think that's what that line is saying, is like, James is just gonna do the same shit again.
I do too. I think it's just a goofy line.
It is very goofy.
Maria could have coughed and me as the player could have figured out what that meant, but James be like, better get that shit figured out.
No,
bro.
it's like a
so
scary
dumb.
movie line.
Yeah. But the letter is the same throughout all the endings.
Is it always the same performance?
Fairly certain. Oh, I don't know.
Like the same reading.
I don't know. Mine was heart-wrenching, dude.
I think it is the same then.
So what we learn is that the letter from the beginning of the game was not even half of the total letter.
No. James had like 30 pages behind that he wasn't...
This is fucking long. I mean, thank God the acting is great in this moment, because it is like, it drags. But it's basically Mary's goodbye letter to him as she is dying. The idea being that he will get it after she passes, that apologizes for a lot of her behavior, re-professes her love for him, and talks about, you know, even though these last few years were pretty bad, it ends with her saying, James, you made me so happy. And, like, the actress is, like, crying while this is being read. Like, I think literally, like, I think,
yes,
like...
that is a behind-the-scenes story, is that, like, she was crying and there were, like, other people in the recording room who were crying, and
like, it's well written as I think this game is. It does have some goofy, stilted writing at times. This is not one of them. Like, this is an incredibly well thought out, beautiful letter in this game where, like, dude, I was fucked up. Like, this shit tore me up.
Well, and I think it works extra well in your ending, because for mine, I think it comes across, I mean, the emotion that the performance is giving is incredible, but my problem with the ending that I got is that it is already too saccharine, and so then this letter on top of that is like too much. But for you to have an ending where James kills herself and then she says lines like, I mean, the one that got me is, I can't tell you to remember me, but I can't bear for you to forget me.
So good.
Is like so brutal. And then at the end she says, that's why I want you to live for yourself now. Do what's best for you, James. And so for you to hear that after James has driven into the lake is like, Jesus Christ.
So in my headcanon, because we do see Maria hand him a letter, and I think you can see it as like, oh, he finally got the second half of the letter, which doesn't really make sense, but I think that's how a lot of people kind of read that moment. The way I see it is James always had this full letter. How he got it after killing his wife, I don't fully understand, because I think a nurse was supposed to give it to him, but that's fine. We can have a plot hole every now and then as a treat. he always had this part of the letter. He had probably already read the entirety of the letter, and just in his broken mental state, just fixated on the beginning of the letter, which is like clearly just Mary writing metaphorically.
Right.
And like that is what cast the events of the game into motion. But like, I love the idea that he had all this info, and like this was written before he murdered Mary. I'm sure she would have clearly felt different after being murdered, but like hearing her say like, thank you for the good in our relationship, please move, which is, you know, something you hear from like people who go through the death of a spouse, is like, I want you to remarry. I don't want, you know, don't be defined.
Maria.
Yeah. Don't be defined by like being a widow. Like hearing all that and thinking like, oh, this man clearly had this information, but like his actions completely destroyed his psyche in such a way that like, you get what I'm trying to say. Like it emotionally tore me up. What a game, dude.
Yeah, it's what a game. You know, even with truly a testament to the fact that it's like, I think my ending, like the ending of the game that I played and received, is bad. And still, I am like, unquestionably, this is the best game we've ever played on this podcast. On second playthrough, I was like, I have been fooling myself to not put this in just my top 5 games of all time. Like, I think whenever I make my list, knocking boots with Resident Evil 4 and the Beginner's Guide, Silent Hill 2 is just like right up there.
Couple questions.
Yep.
Nerdy questions. Lore questions. Angela, Laura, Eddie, Maria. Real people or figments of James's imagination? Because they are all clearly parts of James's brain, right? Like they are representative of parts of James. Like Eddie is the murderer in him.
Yes.
Laura is the child he never had with Mary. Maria is Maria. I think that's even how Mike Drucker wrote it in his book. He like breaks down each character and he goes, Maria is Maria. And then Angela is the victim of his crimes, right? Like she is kind of a surrogate for Mary in a different way. But do you think they're real?
Yes, I do.
Even Maria?
It's funny to kind of think of it as like, have you read or seen Life of Pi?
I think I read it as a kid. I never saw the movie.
The kind of the twist at the ending of Life is Pi is he talks about like being in a boat with all these animals,
right.
And then it's like, oh, actually all the animals were like people that were on the ship that he like survived with or whatever, and it was like the tiger was this guy. Though I might be misremembering that a little bit. Anyway, I think that it is a particularly for Angela, I just think it is a disservice to her to not be real. You know, like I think it is, even though it's a fictional story, I think it is like disrespectful for her to be just a figment of his imagination based on how much kind of like backstory and whatever she has.
Even Maria, though, you think she's real?
Oh, Maria's
because that's
not.
the one I go. Okay, I go back and forth. I know all signs point to fake. She's not real, but like there's part of me that's like, I like the idea that she's real.
I mean, I think it's interesting to think about. If she's real, she could be kind of playing, like what could be cool about that is essentially James just projecting what he wanted onto an unwitting woman.
Yes.
But I do think that a lot of her lines don't quite make sense.
Sure.
And, you know, the scenes where she's like flitting back and forth between Mary and Maria are hard to explain.
I haven't played Born from a Wish. You have, but I think that expands a little bit on her creation. It's also called Born from a Wish. That would imply she's not real, but there's just part of me that it's like, I'm just going to choose to believe she is for no particular reason.
I do want to talk about Born from a Wish for a second. One, before I do that, have you finished Dead Space?
No, unfortunately not. I know about the twist.
Spoilers for Dead Space. It is the same twist that it's like he had a letter at the beginning and he just didn't read all of it, which I didn't think of until just now, being like, oh wait, wow, that just took that ending. Anyway, so Born from a Wish is this expansion slash DLC campaign before games really had.
Well, it wasn't DLC. No,
it didn't have DLC. It was for just like the PC version.
It was the Xbox and PC version,
Right.
The director's cut to the game. So the secondary releases of it had it.
Where you play as Maria, and it is 40 minutes long, maybe, probably 30. It's very short. I was excited to play this because I've never played it before. It's not very good, unfortunately. Okay. The good part is you get more Maria, and her voice actor is good. And so like that's fun. The most interesting part is actually just the cutscene at the very beginning, because she wakes up in Heaven's Night, kind of doesn't know where anyone is, seemingly does not know how she got there. What she says that I think is interesting is just like, she says that she's very scared to die and scared of pain, which I think is an interesting insight into Maria, because she dies so many times in the game, that it is kind of like asking you to treat her like a real person, or think of her more as an individual character. The gameplay is whatever. Essentially, the whole thing is you leave Heaven's Night, you run through Silent Hill for a while, you go into what feels like a Resident Evil mansion, and that's where the whole expansion takes place, is just this one mansion. You do a couple puzzles. They're not great. They don't really feel thematically tied to anything. There is a guy named Ernest who won't open a door, but is in the mansion, and you keep talking to him, and eventually you find out that he had a daughter who fell out the window, and you like find the daughter's like birthday cards. One of, I would say, the most interesting part of it, just from like weird vibes, is there is like 2 seconds where you hear what sounds like normal people talking to each other, which is just like people almost, it sounds almost like a party, and it's like, she went out the window, and it's just kind of like a normal, you're just walking and you hear this conversation, and that's something that you like never hear in the main game, is just people talking normally. But I don't know, the Ernest kind of seems to, what is like the crux of what you would talk about with this, is that Ernest seems to recognize that Maria is born from James, even though she doesn't know who James is, and feels bad for her. And is kind of like, oh no, I know what's going on here. This sucks. Ernest also says that he was born in Silent Hill, which is just like a weird little thing. We never see him. Eventually we open the door where he's talking behind, and there's no one there. Then she walks down the street. There's a scene where she's pointing a gun at herself and then decides to not, and is like, okay, I'll go find James. It's like, it is a good example of the weird alchemy of Silent Hill 2, because it just doesn't have it, and so it is not nearly as compelling. But the music during the credits, kind of a bop. So that's the one thing I would look up.
I have another question, nerdy lore question. Do you think Silent Hill, if you are not a murderous psychopath, if you're Laura, for example, is just like a normal ass town still full of people just chilling? Like, is it a place on a map that people who have not committed great crimes or gone through great trauma could still visit the way Mary and James did and be like, damn, kind of nice little town. Pretty sick. It's weird that they had so many executioners here, but nice town.
My headcanon is it is a place on the map, but there is no one who lives there. And if you went there, every building would essentially be the Nightmare version. Like, it's just everything's like flooded or burned or just like, boarded up. So I don't think there's anyone who lives there. It is just like a town kind of consumed by its history, and then everyone left or died.
But no monsters or anything. Okay. But maybe a cult?
We'll find out.
Oh, man. Yeah. As we're wrapping up, do you have like... Silent Hill 2 is such like a singular vision, free from the confines of Silent Hill 1.
Yeah.
And the cult and all that stuff. It like vaguely gestures towards it, but they seem mostly like Easter eggs at most. Are you a little worried about playing Silent Hill 3 and just being like, okay, there's this cool like, story about womanhood and being a teenage girl and all this stuff, but also the baggage of Silent Hill 1 and the lore of the town.
Yes. What I will say is that I do not envy any game that has to be played immediately after Silent Hill 2. You know, like,
I know.
especially one trying to do a similar thing. I've played like an hour and a half of Silent Hill 3.
Okay.
You know, before this, like, not for Something Rotten. And I remember thinking, seems interesting. There's definitely there are cool ideas going on and whatever. But the idea of lore and not just kind of ideas to think about worries me.
I think that's what John iPatchWolf said in his video is like, this game rocks. Also, it has the baggage of being a direct sequel to 1. But I feel like the thing people say is like, the story of Heather and the themes of Heather are great. It's just like, how much do you fucking care about the fact there's a cult trying to like raise eldritch gods in this town?
Yeah.
But there's an interesting interview. I've been so down bad for this goddamn game, Jacob. There was an interesting interview I saw where one of the directors talked about the ideas that Silent Hill 1 and 2 could exist in the same place. Mm-hmm. And he's like, there's just different parts of Silent Hill. This part of Silent Hill over here, this has all the cult shit.
He's like, you thought you saw the whole town?
Yeah, they're like, it's just different parts. He's like, cult's over here, James is over here in this the PTSD zone. Different areas. It's like, come on. You ever been to a town? They're not all the same neighborhood. You know, there's differences.
Right. I think he's right.
I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, I'm depressed.
Yeah, because you've played one of the best games you'll ever play, and you can't do it for the first time again.
I think I'm going to start replaying it pretty soon.
You're going to get the alien ending.
Hell yeah, the canonical ending. The aliens are doing all this dog shit.
Yeah, look, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Something Rotten. For Jacob Geller, my name is Blake Hester. And play Silent Hill 2, everyone. It's a really, really fucking good game.
Bye.
Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did. Well, I'm alone there now. In our special place. Waiting for you.